So good morning, everybody. I am very pleased to be here today and to introduce the forthcoming seminar lectures, which is jointly organized by the National Academy of Scientists Education and also the Center for Translational Medicine at Semmelweis University. Today's speaker is Marc van Ranst, and I am so happy to see that there are plenty of secondary school students and also there are plenty of PhD students here today. Actually, we are doing medical science for two reasons. If there is something like healthcare challenges, we try to find society or community solutions. And so what kind of healthcare challenges can come? If you think about COVID-19, I think we can't find a better example what we need to do. Actually, if somebody or something or some medical problem hits the community. However, to solve the problems, we always need young people, creative people with talented ideas, and we need healthcare professionals who has the ability to bring the scientific knowledge back to patients' care. Unfortunately, at secondary school students, the interest for science is decreasing. So therefore we need to do something, and this seminar is also would like to show everybody how important it is to doing scientific activity, but on the other hand also usage of scientific knowledge, implementation of scientific knowledge in the daily life is also have problems. If you look at the European Statistics Office data, it's very clear that we could save plenty of lives if we could bring scientific knowledge back to the patient side. If I look at Europe, under 75, 3 of 5 lives can be saved if we use the scientific knowledge we have. Therefore, we built up 2 programs. One of them is mostly for secondary school program and university program, bringing science closer to high school students. And the second is actually for healthcare professionals, mostly medical doctors, but also psychologists, dietitians, and pharmacists who can help bringing scientific knowledge back to healthcare. So concerning the high school program, we have a gift that Bert Sackmann and the Nobel laureate lead actually the program. So, and after sensitization of high school students in science, we would like to bring them further in medicine at university level, and after follow everybody when they finish the medical education. We are so gifted to have so many top high school students and so many laboratories in Europe and in Hungary, actually, where the high school students can practice almost every month. And we are also have plenty of universities, actually the 4 medical universities and also 2 scientific research institutions who can actually be your host later on when you come out from this high school program. And of course, we always have distinguished guests who are visiting the laboratories as well. So we are really, really enthusiastic to bring you from your young age actually until you can help to the community. The other program is this, where the Center for Translational Medicine work, and our aim is, if there is scientific knowledge, we want to bring back the scientific knowledge to healthcare, and really our aim is to combine scientific work and patient care. Academy of Europe is one of the most distinguished academy in Europe, and we were involved also how to make a new model where the healthcare professionals can do scientific activities and they can do the science, they can communicate the scientific knowledge for community, and after they can bring for patients benefits. And the results were really excellent, showing that if those people doing scientific activities, scientific communications, and who are always in the healthcare, the results is much better. So we had plenty of really distinguished researchers, plenty of Nobel laureates, and really high, almost the same quality researchers like the Nobel laureates until now. And also today, we have a really, really privilege to have Marc van Ranst, actually from Belgium, who is really a hero during the COVID-19 disease, where he saved thousands of lives in Belgium and also in Europe. So let me introduce a little bit the today's speaker. Actually, he was born in Belgium, and I also would like to wish a very happy birthday next week, which actually will come. And he's one of the best examples, you guys, that you start right now, because he's the one who started his first research experiments when he was 13. And he had at that time not got many help from others, so he went to pharmacy shops and bought everything he needed, and he brought back to his house to do the experiments. Of course, today it wouldn't be as good as or as possible as today, but after he realized that the equipments, what he has at home, actually the microscope's not good enough to do the further research. So, and he had excellent secondary school teachers, and they immediately went to a hospital, to a bacteriology lab, to continue his research, actually like you will do in this program later. And when he finished a medical degree at the University of Leuven, he immediately started working with in the department of microbiology and immunology. He had a postdoctoral fellowship actually in New York, and after when he returned, he became to be a board licensed specialist in clinical biology, and from 1999 he's in Leuven and doing high quality science. And actually when the COVID-19 pandemic arrived, he became to be a leader of the defending line. So he was not only the leader, the face, but you will hear from the presentation that we can call him easily to a hero, because he had really difficulties to communicate the scientific information back for community benefits. He also got, unfortunately, life threats from those who were not scientifically active, so he was in a safe house when he did his research, but always from the very beginning he had his work for the community benefit. So if I look at our programs from the very beginning, I couldn't have found a better example like Marc, who started in an early experience with brilliant teachers, with a burning desire for science, and after he had continuous commitment, hard work, and he had a sense of responsibility towards society. This is a very important issue, because nowadays there are plenty of selfish people also in science who are not willing to help as much as he had there. So dear Marc, we consider really a great honor and an exceptional gift to have you visit the Center for Translational Medicine at Semmelweis University and the National Academy of Scientist Education. And thank you so much for your incredible, valuable time, and we look forward to your presentation with great excitement. So ladies and gentlemen, please enjoy Marc van Ranst's presentation today.
Peter, thank you for the kind introduction. Calling people a hero is not something that you should do, but okay. This will be a fairly non-scientific presentation. It's called Virologist, a Dangerous Profession. It didn't used to be like that. Being a virologist used to be fairly a quiet job, really. You already referred to this. This is me when I'm 13, maybe 13, 14, in my home. So I started a lab there in the basement. Actually, it was nice because it was adjacent to the garden. And I must say, I have never been bored since. Having my own lab there gave me a sort of peace and quiet that has never left me. So it's really a good idea to start at an early age with science. You don't become a scientist, you are a scientist, and you just hone your skills. And it's just a waste of time if you have to wait till you're, I don't know, 23, 24 before you can do independent research. If you have it in you, you can start much earlier. This period, the past couple of years, have been weird and can be compared to other periods. For example, the murder of JFK in the early 60s. The first man on the moon, 1969. Actually, my grandparents woke me up at 3 or 4 in the morning to watch that, and I'm grateful that they did. 9/11. People remember where they were when they heard the news of the Twin Towers. These are momentous things, and the previous couple of years were like that too. Mind you that the previous 3 occurrences that I mentioned are also occurrences that are falling prey to all kinds of conspiracy theories, and that's not different here. We will immediately recognize photographs from 2020 or 2021, because people will be wearing mouth masks when they're up and about. So that will be a weird period where young children will tell their grandchildren about in a couple of years. So it impacted people in almost all facets of their life, and there was a lot of uncertainty. An uncertainty that makes people nervous. It's a little bit like the beginning of the movie Forrest Gump. If you haven't seen the movie, you should. Where he sits on a bench with a box of chocolates. And he says, life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get. You don't know what will be inside the chocolate. And when you're faced with a pandemic, it's exactly the same. You have no idea how bad it will be. You have no idea what actually in the beginning will be the causative agent. You don't know how long it will last. There is a lot of uncertainty. Yet that uncertainty is faced by an amazing amount of research. SARS-CoV-2, the COVID-19 virus, is the virus that we know now the most about. When you go into the nucleotide sequence databases, actually the virus that has been sequenced the most by far, it used to be HIV, is now SARS-CoV-2. Many laboratories that worked on other viruses started working on COVID immediately in 2020. So there's a lot of research being done, and the level of detail that people know this is amazing. So you all know about the alpha variants, beta, gamma, delta, omicron that we see now. That's one of the tasks of my laboratory in Leuven, to type these viruses and sort of make sense of them. And as you can see, all these variants, they're succeeding each other. They're replacing each other. And that's what viruses do. Viruses really do not want to make you sick. That's stupid, because, and definitely if they kill you, that's the end of the virus. That's never the aim of a virus. A virus, just like any other forms of life, they want to multiply themselves, multiply their genetic material. And to do that, transmission is extremely important. So the ease of transmission, that's what is important to a virus. So a virus which will be even a couple of percentage points more transmissible will win out in the end. And that's how we see with this RNA virus. For DNA viruses, that's less obvious. They're replacing each other with a fairly constant tempo. Now, people know about this. They got 3 years of virology classes. And the knowledge in the general population about virology is pretty amazing. I was in the bakery, the local bakery, a couple of months ago, just on a Sunday, ordering my croissants. And an elderly lady, about 85, from the neighborhood, taps on my shoulder and says, Professor van Ranst, is it still the BA5 variant that is circulating here? You cannot imagine how weird that is for a virologist, to talk in a local bakery shop with the local people there, not about the COVID virus, but about a sub-variant of Omicron. That is really weird. That shows you that that knowledge has really penetrated the population, and that has, of course, different effects. This is another thing that we do in the lab in Leuven. We look at sewage water. When you're infected with SARS-CoV-2, you basically excrete the virus in your stool, and that will enter the sewage system. So then when you go to a collection point that is strategically located so that the fecal material of thousands of people is collected there, and you take samples, you can look at the viral load in the sewage. As you can see, the past wave has been the biggest wave in terms of COVID circulation. There have never been, this is for Belgium, there has never been a wave where more people got COVID and were affected by it. However, when you look at the intensive care, patients with COVID in intensive care, after the first waves and after the Delta wave, it went down. When Omicron came and the different variants, subvariants of Omicron started circulating, they caused little wavelets in intensive care. So the pathogenicity, the resulting pathogenicity is becoming smaller. That's due to the fact maybe that Omicron is a little bit less pathogenic, but mainly because it has been circulating in the population. People got infected, have antibodies, and that's very important, in our country, more than 96% of the population, definitely the ones over 60, got vaccinated. So the disease is very different now, and that's very obvious in the measures that are not here anymore, that were there in the past. When you look at the deaths due to COVID, this is the mortality in Belgium. Blue is the general mortality, non-COVID related, and orange is due to COVID. You can see that 2020, that was pretty bad. 2 big waves with a lot of mortality. And then in 2021, COVID was still very prevalent, but not except for the Delta wave at the end of the year, not really with an over-mortality that is important. Then when you look at 2022, there is no over-mortality, and for 2023, it's even, there is almost no orange there. So we're in a completely different phase in the pandemic now. When you look worldwide, you can see that not 2020, but 2021 was the most important one. But this is mortality, but not 2022. And as you can see, that brown line is going down and down in 2023. So in terms of mortality, this epidemic is almost over. Look at the number at the top there. About 7 million people died, and that is recorded deaths due to laboratory-confirmed COVID-19. That's only the tip of the iceberg. When you calculate the over-mortality during the COVID seasons in all countries in the world, you arrive at about 22 million people that died. To put that a little bit into perspective, it's the 4th biggest pandemic in history in the last couple of 100 years. Yes, the Black Death had a bigger impact, smallpox had a bigger impact. Of course, the mother of all pandemics in more recent history in 1918, the Spanish flu, but then comes COVID. So it is the 4th biggest one in terms of number of deaths. That means that a lot of PhD theses will be written about this. This will be in the history books. This was a big one, well deserving of study. Of course, you had to do things. People were dying, and measures were being taken immediately, afterwards, and every single measure would not do anything, or won't do a sufficient amount of good. So you needed different measures. It's a little bit like cheese with little holes in it. There are holes in the cheese, so anything can go through. And you need different slices of cheese in order to, in the end, hopefully block all the holes and block transmission. So one measure is not going to cut it. You need more. And some of these measures were fairly harsh. This is the Oxford Stringency Index for different countries. The Oxford Stringency Index measures the impact of the measures in the different countries at any given time. For example, if you ask people to wear mouth masks on public transportation, that is a bother, but not really big. If you really declare a lockdown, that's about the toughest one. Of course, a lockdown in China is different than a lockdown in Belgium or many other countries. So they calculate the strictness of all these measures. It's not completely mathematical, but anyhow you can make these graphs. It is amazing. So the blue line is above 50, and that's when there are measures that are impacting your life. For example, your cafes can be closed. For some people, that's a big disaster. If you go higher, schools will be closed. If you go even higher and above 80, it will really be a complete lockdown. It is amazing that in every country in the world, people think that in their country, the measures were the harshest in the world because of incompetent politicians and bad virologists. Every country thinks that. Yeah? When you look at the number of purple there, or the surface of purple there, you can see that there were differences between the countries. And I use this graph in Belgium to show them that in Belgium it was not really the worst in the world in terms of stringency of measures. But it impacted people's lives. They couldn't go where they wanted to go. They couldn't meet who they wanted to meet. It was harsh on people. And that was made worse by different communication problems, actually miscommunications in between people that are hard to avoid, but that are going to, play on the emotions of people. Many people do not understand the complexity of a pandemic, and they want to make life easy for them, and they try to find easy solutions or easy explanations for their troubles, and very often things go wrong there. I would like to point by point go over factors that made life difficult, not only for scientists but for communicating in an easy way about this. One is that the scientific literature, something that we trust really very, very much, was acting completely different during the pandemic. The COVID period was really the launching pad for preprint servers becoming very popular. Preprint servers is where you send a paper there, it's not reviewed, it's not peer reviewed, but you think that the information is so crucial that you already want your colleagues around the world to know about it before it even went through review. That's a dangerous business, even in peacetime. During a pandemic, that is dangerous. But even in the regular medical journals, things were operating in a different way. This is the average time in the review process, so until acceptance, from submitting an article to having the article accepted, in normal days, on average. And you can see on average, it will take about 80 days with a big spread to get a paper accepted in a journal. Now, if it was COVID, this is pre-COVID. Yeah? If the article was about COVID starting in the beginning of 2020, the review process really went extremely quick. You could get your paper accepted in a couple of days, in a couple of weeks, and it was there. So the quality of the review process might have gone down a little there. Whereas if you published a non-COVID related article during that period, good luck, because everybody was busy reading COVID papers, you had to wait a little longer. Preprint servers generate a lot of anxiety and basically fake news. This is only one example. That was a paper that was presented to bioRxiv in January 31st, 2020, where they basically saw some parts of the HIV genome engineered in the COVID genome. At least that's what they thought. That would be world news, because that would mean that COVID virus was specifically engineered to contain the HIV, GP120 and GAG proteins. That was not true. That was a statistical mistake on their part, but it was published. At least it was available on the preprint server. A book was written about this. Is COVID-19 a bioweapon? That did a lot of harm. I'm not completely sure that the Wuhan virology laboratory had nothing to do with the COVID virus, but to immediately call it a bioweapon, that is really extremely dangerous. And then, of course, that becomes politicized. And on the China Global Television Network, they're then going to claim that a Russian expert said that COVID-19 might be a bioweapon created in US laboratories in Ukraine. So basically you have everything together there. Geopolitically, that is becoming extremely complicated then. And that all started with a little article which was retracted a week later because it obviously contained major mistakes, but the damage is done. People do not notice the retraction, and it sort of gets into people's heads, and it goes from there. So that's the scientific world, or at least the publishing world. We'll talk more about the scientific world later. Of course, you have the mainstream media. They did a lot of stories mentioning the COVID virus. This is for different countries. And you can see that when the situation became critical in Wuhan, and then especially when Italy was hit, suddenly, at the middle of March, when the lockdowns were starting in many countries, about 70% of the news stories were about COVID. That never happened. There was never in history a topic that would, and it continued for more than a year, where you could have complete news broadcasts where everything would be about COVID. And now we go to the sports. And that was just to tell that one of soccer player had COVID, had nothing to do with sports. There were no sports. So everything was about COVID, COVID, COVID. And that was weird, because even a world war after 2 weeks goes to page 2. And here you had every day COVID news on the front page. The English newspapers are always good examples. They have crazy front pages. Mind you that Meghan Markle seems to be very often on the front page. It starts out to be fairly neutral. UK virus outbreak has begun. Official, that's fine. Then, first virus death in the UK. It's fairly neutral. Mind you, Meghan Markle there. First virus death in the UK in Metro. Okay. Well. Then it becomes a little bit more emotional. Stay in, stay alive. But it's still a media expression that supports the lockdown, so it's fairly responsible. But it never ends like this. Fix testing fiasco now. Dead sleep 381 in a day. Fast spreading COVID wrecks Christmas. Will this nightmare ever end? And it becomes more and more emotional, and it gets people really worked up. Now, it's also, and this is now from Scotland and from the Daily News in New York. It becomes more detailed because people have more virology knowledge. So scientists warn of the risk posed by the Delta variant. They talk about these different variants as if everybody knows virology. Yeah? Also about immunology, people learn a lot. Scientists back booster shots after substantial decline in antibodies. People learned a lot about immunology too. They had no idea about antibodies. They had no idea about vaccines. If you would ask a person a couple of years ago, what did you get in your arm? They would say, well, I don't know, a shot. And now they know, no, this was my second booster with and they will name the Pfizer or Moderna vaccine by name. They have a pretty good idea what is happening, and they know about boosting antibodies suddenly. For physicians, it's a different world. You have to do a lot more explaining, which may be good, to a population, or at least part of the population is more literate now in science matters. And then, of course, there is the balance between fake news and facts. It's not always easy to see what is what. Especially in the US, that was extremely interesting to study. Because there, depending on where you got your news from, and for many people that means CNN, and if you watch CNN, you're probably more of a Democrat. If you watch Fox News, you're probably more right-leaning towards the Republicans. And the health-seeking behavior and the way that the COVID measures were followed, depending on where you got your news from. This is in the middle of the pandemic. People who were watching CNN were more likely to wash their hands, were more likely to avoid public places, to wear face masks, and there was a big difference. And that continued to the vaccination. These are the 10 states in the United States that vaccinated the most in 2021, when most of the vaccines were given worldwide. So New York State, Rhode Island, New Jersey, Vermont, and so on, not very different. And these were the 10 states that vaccinated the most. These are exactly the 10 states where the biggest percentage of the population votes for the Democratic Party. These are the 10 states that vaccinated the least, so going from Kentucky to Idaho. These are exactly, numerically, the 10 states that have the highest percentage of their population voting for the Republican Party. So in the US, it quickly became a political issue, not only if you followed measures or not, but also if you would choose for vaccination or not. And they don't even overlap. There is no overlap between the states that vote most Democratic and most Republican in terms of vaccination, and that had an impact on the mortality. Red is, and this comes from July to September 2021, when another wave hit the United States. The red line is the counties where well, basically Trump won in the presidential election. The blue ones are the counties where Joe Biden had the highest share. And you can see that the average death due to COVID rate was much higher in the counties that had more votes for Trump. Let's now go to so we had the preprint servers and the scientific literature. We talked about the mass media, or the media. And then, of course, they come to the scientific experts, and they expect a lot of wisdom from the scientific experts. And then you notice that the principle of evolving knowledge is a principle that is really unknown to much of the population. That's what scientists do. The knowledge is evolving, and definitely in a field like this, almost every day. And scientists evolve their opinions together with the evolving knowledge, and we think that is very normal to do. Yet the population is not following that. Politicians know that very well. A politician that in his life changes his opinion once, he's called out for that. They say, he changes his mind the whole time, as if it's something bad. And that has now entered the scientific field, and suddenly people have to deal with the concept of evolving knowledge, and they can't. Yeah. On March 19, I was part of the outbreak management team in Belgium, and I had been a interministerial commissioner during the H1N1 epidemic in 2009. So on March 19, I will get the question on the evening news on the set, how long will this epidemic last? Which is a very reasonable question to ask. March 19, that is the beginning of the lockdown, and people want to know how long is this going to last. So it's a valid question. And then my answer is 10 weeks. And at that time, that was the right answer. Because that was the only answer that was sort of had a basis in pre-existing knowledge. Let me explain. Of course, when you say that on the evening news, you start with saying, I don't know, and this is very difficult to calculate, but if you really want me to speculate, I'll say 10 weeks. When they repeat that segment in the late evening news, that first crucial sentence, I don't know, it's hard to calculate, that is left out. The only thing that is broadcasted is, how long will this take? 10 weeks. Yeah? As if I'm completely sure about this. That first thing, that goes away. During live broadcasts, you have some control over it, everything that happens later. No. Why did I say 10 weeks? Well, because in China, the first outbreak in Wuhan itself, after the lockdown started, because they started earlier with their lockdown, was gone in 10 weeks, or almost 10 weeks. I had experience from 2003, 2004, when the brother of SARS-CoV-2, SARS-CoV-1, was causing SARS, the severe acute respiratory syndrome, in the southern province of Guangdong in China. Also there, the whole thing, that was first in Beijing. The second part of the epidemic curve is in the whole of China and worldwide. Took about 10 weeks. 8,000 cases, 800 deaths, and the thing was finished in 10 weeks. An influenza epidemic in any given year in Belgium is about 10 weeks. So 10 weeks was a reasonable answer at that time. Completely wrong. I now know it's 10 times 10 weeks at least, but that was the reasonable answer to give. Yet when you do that, so this is what I said, okay, this epidemic will last 10 weeks, this during the evening news. And then, to this day, that is used on Twitter to say, oh, Van Ranst, he's a complete idiot. When you look for Van Ranst and idiot, well, you find thousands of tweets. This is just a small proportion. So they think you're an idiot because it was longer than 10 weeks. And he should have known. He's a scientist, he's an expert. And even that he didn't know. The confidence level goes down because people have not been subjected to the concept of evolving knowledge. They absolutely have no idea, they do not understand. So that generates negative emotions, and it quickly gets worse. Then in science, you have the Captain Hindsight. If you're an expert, that is a category of your colleagues that you really wish there will be a special place in hell for them. That's unfair, but the Captain Hindsights are extremely annoying when you have been an expert, because they will tell you with great confidence what you should have done. You have to imagine you and your colleagues have been in the trenches for, let's say, 2 years. And you're tired, you're dirty, and then suddenly the crisis is lightening up and you're ready to leave the trenches, but you're completely dead tired. And there they come. You haven't seen them whole crisis. In a crisp white lab coat. Then coming to tell you what you should have done, because they knew all this but chose to be silent during the crisis. You haven't seen them. And suddenly they know everything. And with 100% of the knowledge, because the crisis is 90% done, they're going to critique you for the decisions that you had to take during the crisis. There is only one certainty, and that is, to the relief of most of the experts, you know for sure that when the next crisis hits, they will again be in hiding and not there, only to reappear when everything is safe. In the scientific profession, there are rogue scientists that are going to confuse people, and that can be pretty bad. This is Luc Montagnier. Luc Montagnier got the Nobel Prize for his discovery of the HIV virus. I knew Luc at that time. He's he's a nice man, but in his older years, he started believing in homeopathy and really weird shit. Yeah? And he was going on TV telling them that, oh, this is a manipulated virus, and he was going with the HIV containing part, the COVID-19 containing part of HIV. And of course, people believe that because he's a Nobel laureate. And even though in his later years he was utterly confused and out of it, when a Nobel laureate says something, it must be right, and that was difficult. This is in Belgium. Geert van den Bos, you don't know him. He once was a virologist. He trained as a virologist, and then stopped, and for the past 25 years has not published a single article in the field. Then suddenly, when COVID hits, he starts saying, oh, vaccination is bad, everybody will die in a couple of months because of the vaccination. And he started to become extremely popular in the anti-vaccination circles. You have to imagine, this is a person who was, for most of his years, out of a job, going from one little job to another, and then suddenly he gets the attention of all the anti-vaccination groups. He gets donations, he gets hundreds of thousands of euros of donations per year just to support a completely contrarian view based on nothing, not a single published article in the past 25 years. But people believe him and not the experts. Van Ranst is a pure psychopath and mass murderer. You should rather listen to what top vaccinologist, without having published a paper in the past 25 years, Geert van den Bosse has to say about these vaccines. Very difficult, because he has a PhD in virology. Obtained that 25, 30 years ago, published 7 papers in his life, but not in the past 25 years. And then suddenly he's bombarded as the expert on vaccines. And well, according to him, we would all die in a couple of months after we got the vaccine. And he was really pleading, stop the vaccination because it will be a coming COVID catastrophe. And people believe that. When they believe him, well, they think you're a mass murderer. And that makes life difficult. This was made a little bit difficult because an ex-rector of the university where I'm associated with, or I work, he was a one-period rector. He's now very mad at the university, and he was going against me. He was telling me that Van Ranst is very radical and extreme. I don't know if he's always talking the truth. The third one is, the others, virologists, they're a little bit afraid of Marc van Ranst, based on nothing, really. And the newspapers pick that up. That does a lot of damage, because he's an ex-rector of the biggest university in Belgium. And people listen to that, pick up on this, and that generates a lot of confusion. And then, of course, the social media. This is the first pandemic where social media played a role. In 2009, with the Mexican flu, the H1N1 Mexican flu, there was social media in 2009. I had a Facebook account, a Twitter account, posted messages there, hardly any reaction on social media in 2009. That changed completely in 2020. First of all, you have the instant virologists. That's a special breed. They're expert in everything. They graduate at the Google University. They're internet doctors of medicine. And they can be really weird. They fall prey very often to the Dunning-Kruger effect. The Dunning-Kruger curve is a curve where expertise is on the horizontal axis and confidence is on the vertical axis. And in fact, that's a curve when you study a certain field that we all go through. In the beginning, when you start the studies of medicine, for example, you have no expertise and no confidence. However, in your first year, when you start to become involved in medicine, your confidence level goes up. You start wearing a stethoscope around your neck. You have no idea what to do with the stethoscope, but it looks good. Yeah? And that's a phase, because quickly you do your exams and you see, well, I don't know anything really. And your confidence level goes down, and you study, and then slowly you build up knowledge and confidence. That's the way that it goes, and that's okay. But these people, they stop at the peak of the curve there. Hardly any knowledge, but a lot of confidence. Yeah? And they're the instant experts in virology. Now, to be fair, I don't want to sound too harsh for all of them, because there are people that never studied medicine, never studied biology, never went to university or any other education, but they study this, and they can know really a lot. And for them, I have a lot of respect, because they really learn the things and achieve a very good knowledge of a small piece of science, but to a degree that you can really have a meaningful, interesting conversation with them. But these know. They know nothing. They can write whatever they know about virology at the back of a postage stamp and have still some space left. But they're going to be the experts. Not only that, they're going to demand to debate you. Yeah? Debate me, bro, is really, it's very annoying, because they think that at any given time you should devote time to debate them, whereas it's a complete waste of time, because they know anything about the topic. And they gradually evolve in social media trolls. Trolls, they basically are there to make you angry. That's their reason for being. They love anger, they feed upon anger, and they want to make life as miserable for you. And then I will only show you a couple of these tweets. Van Ranst is a murderer, that's a fact. Hitler could have learned from him, he's a dirty fascist. Yeah? Every day. The comparisons with Hitler, they're there every day. People really believe that Van Ranst is a mass murderer because he was supporting vaccination. Can somebody shoot a bullet into Van Ranst for his scaremongering? We're being duped, the media is corrupt, government is even more corrupt. They're living on an allowance because they have no job, but they do not like the government. Yeah? And they have a lot of free time to 100% of their time to go and troll other people. I'm offering €1,000 for the one who kicks the hell out of the fat Van Ranst. And then people are reacting to it, and they say, oh, I'll match that donation. So the people, they really love that. In the 40s, they had Dr. Mengele. In the 20s of the next century, they had Van Ranst. These people really do not know their history. They have no idea, in fact, of the Nazi Dr. Mengele, but they know that it works. Thousands of tweets with Van Ranst and Mengele, if you look for it. Van Ranst is a dirty, filthy Belgian liar and murderer. I hope that he will get whatever he does to others. Let's see him when he loses one of his children. Dirty typhoid person, stay in Belgium with your cancer head. That's May 2023. Last year I was flying from Prague to Belgium, and there's a person behind me, apparently, I didn't know, who recognized this manipulator, fraud, liar that is sitting in the airplane from Prague to Brussels. I can hardly restrain myself. Now, the flight was on the tarmac because one of the engines didn't work, and we had to wait there for an hour and then got offloaded. When I was off the plane and I was checking the social media, I saw this. I said, "Ooh, that's interesting." And we got on the next planes or different planes. I didn't know the person. I didn't see him. But then the reactions on Twitter were nice to follow. You didn't bring a rope. Yeah? Didn't you have any opportunity to throw this dirty liar out of the airplane? This pig is bait by Big Pharma. He's an asshole. Shoot his wife, so he becomes a widower and he will cry like a pig. You know from what date that is? A couple of days ago, 7th of June. Just a couple of days ago. Yeah. Go to sleep, you fool. This is from the 11th of June. That is what, 2 days ago? Yeah, go to sleep. You fool with your fat belly, and hopefully you will not wake up anymore. You locked people up without a reason. I hope that karma will soon come for you, you dirty fat ass. When I read this, I think, yeah, I should lose weight. But that's every day, every single day. It's every day, really. That's a day, that's another day, that's another day, that's another day, that's another day, another day, and so on. A special part are the tribunal fetishists. That's the name I give them. They want you to be convicted, and they want a sort of Nuremberg 2.0 trial. This is Heinrich Füllmich. He's a German lawyer that is organizing these international tribunals, or at least that's what he wants you to believe. And if you pay him 600 euros, you become part of the lawsuit. It's like a sort of class action suit that he believes, or that's what he promises his followers. And then when all the politicians and virologists will go on trial, they will lose their possessions, and then you get part of the payout. So you will get more than your 600 that you put in there. People believe that, and they send him 600 euros. And he's gone. He used the money for his own house, and that's it. That is basically a fraud, but people believe that. And that's what he organizes. And he organizes a grand jury, and it sort of looks official, and people fall for that. They really think that at this moment, politicians and virologists are being put on trial, and they're extremely certain of that. Van Ranst is guilty of murdering hundreds of thousands in Europe by promoting the mRNA jabs. He's a serial killer, should be prosecuted. This murderer does not have any rights anymore and should be hanged. Yeah. Dear piece of vermin, this is from the 5th of June, you're already found guilty by an international court of having committed genocide. It only exists in their imagination, but their imagination is vivid. Yeah. Marc van Ranst is on the nomination list for decapitation at the upcoming Nuremberg tribunal. And they even make lists of who is going to be killed first. A little bit disappointing, I'm on place 9 there, but at least I will see Fauci, Bill Gates, I will see them being executed. And they even imagine this, how this will look like. Marc van Ranst on a Nuremberg tribunal will look like this. Yeah? And it's so weird. And in the beginning you sort of laugh with this, but then you realize that some people are really very serious about this. And they feel very strongly about this. It's a little bit like these people who are against abortion are going to shoot gynecologists at their gynecology office. They're dangerous. The guillotines are ready for you. It's only a matter of time. None of your families will be able to live in peace. We don't forgive and forget. You have blood on your hands, and you will pay for that every day. Then you have to ask yourself, why are people doing this? And then quickly you realize that some political parties are using their influence and money to weaponize the online landscape. Some political parties, they love unhappy people. They love people who are angry. It's their bread and butter, and if they can make people angry, they will. This is a member of the Flemish Parliament for the right extreme wing Vlaams Belang party, and he makes these little collages. This is another member of the federal parliament in Belgium for the same extreme right-wing party, Vlaams Belang, and then they put you with a Stalin moustache as if you're guilty of murdering millions of people. This is the president of that political party, Vlaams Belang, who says for no reason at all, the balls of Van Ranst have a sour aftertaste. I ask myself, how can he know? This is the same president of that political party who says, were you drunk again? Just out of the blue, trying to paint a picture. And then their right-wing online magazines, they're perpetuating that. Now, these magazines are not known by 75% of the population in Belgium. But 25% of the population, they know these really well, and they read them every day. Yeah? And they publish articles really every day about you. Give me an hour with Van Ranst and it's game over. Yeah, he's a plastic surgeon. Marc van Ranst is a dangerous, arrogant idiot, and it's every day. This is another outlet, Scheld. They make these cartoons, but they make them every day. This is another one. Could we avoid corona deaths? With my picture there. I having the time of my life. Dirty, rancid Van Ranst. And it's every day. They have these articles, and that works. That's another one. Marc van Ranst is about to explode. Tom van den Driessen is a European Parliament member for that right-wing party. Van Ranst is incompetent, unprofessional, unsuited, and it's every day. And so 25% of the population gets really inundated every day with news, negative news about Van Ranst, other virologists, and to make people angry, and that works. The nastiest thing that they can do is they make fake tweets, as if I would have written them, and I've not written them. And then they start propagating that tweet. This, I should translate it, this is the common people. I would never, why would you call somebody the common people? The common people do not understand that because of economical and logistical reasons, it was a choice to have the older people die in the elderly homes. It would have been a logistical nightmare to bring them to the hospital. We had to make choices. And they write that as if I would have written this, and this has never appeared on Twitter, but they share screenshots, and of course people get extremely angry about that email, and the first one who propagated that email was the president, female president of Vlaams Belang, that party in Mechelen, another city. And that has, even to this day, it sometimes reappears and generates again the same upheaval, and you can do nothing about it. You can only write, this is a fake tweet, blah, 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 and that's it, you have no defense. With that landscape, people being uncertain, the media blowing it up, politicians trying to create anxiety and panic and anger, people start intimidating the experts. This is everywhere. This comes from Nature. About 15% of the experts that were involved in COVID-19 received death threats. But all of them, or the majority of them, about 60%, were attacked on their credibility. That's the least they can do. So many people were impacted by this. And then they organized manifestations to hand my resignation. I have no official function. This is my job at the university, but they should fire me at the university. So they gathered 2,000 people who come and sign a paper that I should resign, and then they come to bring that to you in 2 crates, and that's it. It's just, and for them it's very easy. This reads, the virus is finally isolated. And that really illustrates how they think. It's my head in a jar there. It's extremely complicated. They do not understand the intricacies of epidemiology and whatever. So you become the virus. And that shows that very, very easily there. If you become the virus, they can be mad at you because you're the virus. And they replace the virus with the virologist, and then for them life becomes easy again. VDB, Van den Broeke, is the Minister of Health, plus Marc van Ranst is Hitler times 10. No idea. They should really study history a bit better, but the references to Hitler, they're everywhere. Then the leader of the anti-vaccine movement in Belgium, he's a lawyer, he just called for the death penalty for the virologist to his people of the Viruswaanzin groups, called Viral Madness Group. So he posted a video and he says, we had a bad year. That year was bad due to the virologist. They should be put on trial and they should receive the death penalty. And then some people ask, and how should that death penalty be? It should be public, to scare other people, and it should be medievally gruesome. It's It's really what they say. It should not be just, chop your head off. No, it should be gruesome. It's amazing that people can be like this. Since July 2020, I have police protection to this day, and other virologists at different periods had police protection too. Vaccinologist Marc van Ranst is about the nicest person in the world, and he needed police protection because what did he do? He said that, yeah, let's get vaccinated. That was, people are angry at him, and they also receive threats. And then a right-wing extremist in the Belgian army, he steals weapons from the armory. One was an anti-tank rocket launcher, and he drives to my address. These were the things that he stole. So it's an anti-tank weapon, and then heavy military machine guns. And then he stays with his car, he stays in front of my door for 2 hours, from 7 to 9. That's when I normally come home. Luckily for me, I had come home uncharacteristically at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, so he couldn't find me. He went in hiding. They found his car a little bit later. A surveillance camera of one of the neighbors had seen the car come and go, and he went in hiding, and they couldn't find him. So my family and I were asked by the government to go in safe houses and in hiding. The anti-vaxxers immediately replied, "Oh, that's nice, and now Van Ranst on our money is going to stay in a luxury hotel." Well, it's not that luxurious, really. And this is how you do your laundry there, because you can't go home, because it's not safe. So it has not been a pleasant period. And then finally, after 8 weeks, they find the guy. He had shot himself, and everything is over. That's how I received messages from my son at that time. This was not surprising, given the political situation, given the fact that I can easily understand that a person really would go crazy. What I did not understand when I was in the safe house, the day after, there were Telegram groups and Facebook groups where 50,000 people supported that military person, Jürgen Konings. They loved him. They thought that he was a hero, that he was doing a good job, and that his goal, killing me, was a laudable goal. That I could not understand. That one person really goes crazy, but that was to me was completely unexpected, that he would get the popular support. And then, while you're in the safe house, they are waging bets on when exactly he will murder you, how late and with how many bullets will Van Ranst will be eliminated. Yeah. The new hunting season is open, and they circulate it among themselves. Yeah. These are the new safe houses for Van Ranst and his family members. And then basically he kills himself, and the tree where under he kills himself is now a pilgrimage place for the right-wing party. They go there to pay homage to their fallen hero, leave Flemish flags there, and it's become a sort of pilgrimage place. Another person, also from the right extreme wing party, was arrested because he wanted to join the fight and do exactly the same as Jürgen Konings, and he was sentenced to 6 months in jail. However, he's, of course, free again now. And then they come to your house. Dutch people, they take the pain to come to my house in Belgium to give me the Anton Mussert Prize. Anton Mussert was a Nazi collaborator in the Netherlands, very famous in the Netherlands. And they come, of course, they're very proud that they're going to have that guerrilla action to hand over to me the Anton Mussert Prize. And they have 2 cameras that they're going to film everything with. Yeah. And this is at my door. One camera is filming it, the other one is filming it. And so the doorbell rings on a Sunday, and my wife opens the door, and they say, we want to give your husband the Anton Mussert Prize for his great work during the pandemic. So my wife calls, Marek, the Anton Mussert Prize. Now, I know who Anton Mussert is. I said, nah, forget about it. So I slammed the door in their face. They had to unceremoniously leave the prize on the doorstep, and I gave it a special place in my home, the Anton Mussert Prize. But that was, for my son, that was scary, because now adversaries were ringing the bell, and for a while, the better part of a year, he's 13 at that time, he wouldn't open the door by himself, and that was nasty. And then finally there were lawsuits. That was extremely annoying. A Dutch dancing teacher, a salsa teacher, that salsa teacher turned expert in virology, and he started lawsuits in Belgium, in total 6 against me. In Belgium we have a weird system that if you pay 250 euros to a bailiff, he can invite you to the correctional court for whatever reason. I called him a virus denier. Why? Because he said that COVID-19 didn't exist. He thought that was an insult, and he started lawsuits for a number of these things. So then you have to devote at least your time to it and money for a lawyer, because you have to go. There is no way not to go. So I decided, okay, I will not pay a lawyer, I will play the lawyer myself, and won all 6 of the lawsuits. But you lose a lot of time for that. So you're there at the courtroom with all the documents, and you really have to play the part. That is why the lower thing just contained virology things, had nothing to do with the lawsuit, but you have to show that you're busy with it, and you have to win them in a very visible way to scare all the others away. And of course, he was then sentenced to pay the costs of the trials, and after a while then that stops. So, I wanted to show you that virologist can be a dangerous profession. I think I have one more slide here. Oh yeah, that's me a couple of weeks ago when I was giving a talk in Bruges, and somebody came up to me from the back, is in front of my face, calls "murderer," and then hits me with a pie. Luckily, the pie fell with the right side to the ground, and it was not a bad pie, other than that. So, as a virologist, I love security, but I have no problems with virology. There is a lot of job security in the virology field, for sure. Thank you for your attention. Peter, pleasure.
This, I would say, impressive and unfortunately shocking presentation at the same time. So, question time.
Completely in the back.
So, thank you very much for the presentation, Dr. van Ranst. I'm going to ask a provocative question because this was a provocative lecture, and it's not going to be against you, don't worry. The question is, why do we even bother? Because this is going to keep happening. There is no solution that we can see at the end. 25% of the people, as you described, are going to be the 25% of the people. So why do we even engage them? Why not just do our job? Why do we have to explain it to other people who's not going to understand?
Yeah. It's a very valid question, and a question that I've asked myself many times. There are different strategies. You could really say, okay, let's ignore all of it and just go on with our merry lives. Frankly, that never worked, because they keep escalating this, and it doesn't. So people say then, well, why don't you stay out of the media and stay off social media? And then, no, my job is to inform people. I keep doing it, and during the vaccination campaigns, I was advocating for having high vaccination rates, and it worked in Belgium. But to keep quiet, I don't see why. This will, and you're absolutely right, this will not stop until anonymity on social media is not there anymore. Because if you, and I sometimes do that, if you confront these people, and sometimes you can easily find out who it is. They're completely anonymous, they think, but then if you look at some of their pictures, you find hints where they live. Some have their names on other pictures that they show, and I can call them up. And then very often, it's already a lot less. It's like, oh, sorry, I didn't really mean it like this. I had too much to drink and blah, blah, blah. So sometimes they're very small. There's a program on TV now that goes there, looks them up with a camera, and then very often they're this big. Some really are still extremely vehemently argumentative, but most of them don't amount to anything. But take the anonymity away, and because this is happening, and this is happening in many countries, Marion Koopmans in the Netherlands, Christian Drosten in Germany, they all experience this. And the political world, and this is something that the political world is very sensitive to, because they experience much of the same. And they're becoming more and more inclined that anonymity, whereas anonymity can sometimes be useful, completely being anonymous on social media is not a really good thing. In Belgium, it is forbidden to walk around the streets with your head covered. You should be recognizable. If you should be recognizable on the street, why not on social media? If you take that anonymity away, that nastiness will decrease by 95% for sure. But it's a valid question.
Thank you for your amazing work. And I would just like to ask that do you have a lawyer or a team of the lawyer in this life-threatening moment first? Or do you take any legal steps for it?
The university offered me their legal team to do that, but I'm doing it myself. And because it's not hard to do. I mean, if it would be a complicated legal case, I have enough respect for the lawyers as a profession to use them for sure. But these were really clear-cut cases that no. One of the problems is that threats are still if you want to notify the police, you have to go there yourself. Yeah. So, and that takes a lot of time. So I try to negotiate with them. Is it okay if I just send it by email? Because other than the fact that I received this, there is nothing I can say. I don't know these people, and I can only say this is the date that this appears on Twitter, or this is the email that I got. And I have nothing extra to give you, but no, you have to appear there in person. So I only do that for the most egregious things. There was once where I immediately did that when one guy said, "I know where your son goes to school," and okay, that person became my hobby for a couple of days. Found out who it is, and there I filed a complaint, but. I only read maybe 1% of that. It's not my hobby to read all these things. Very often people send me the most egregious things that they see, and then I either act upon it or not. But most I just, of course, you just let it pass.
So, this is kind of a more personal question, but have you experienced any conflicts or some kind of bad events among the people you know or you know closely, or within your circle of friends or family? And if yes, how did you deal with these?
Well, in my immediate circle, so that means family and the close collaborators in the university, no, luckily. But when I look at my graduating class, yeah, there are two people from my graduating class who really joined the anti-vaccination groups, and they, in my mind, they were really reasonable people. They received the same training as I did. And yet they went over to the other side. And to be honest, I can disagree with people and afterwards have coffee with them. But I must say that after 2 years, and after what they have said, and that is very rare, I have no interest in having coffee with them anymore. They're not my friends anymore. And that happened multiple times, also in families, where some people really went completely down the rabbit hole, and that has generated a lot of negative emotions to the point that they don't see each other anymore, which is really weird. But if it would not become personal, you can deal with it. I mean, people have different opinions. I have people who are extreme right-wing, but I still have a coffee with them because I agree with them on many other things. But when it comes personal and they really threaten you and then call you a mass murderer, you don't take that lightly.
Thank you for this shocking presentation. I would like to ask, how is your family or friends coping with these threats and trials?
My family is fine for 2 reasons. First, they know me, and if they would say, don't do it, keep a low profile, it would be difficult. Yet, they're not very active on social media, and they only know part of the story. My father is different. I told you yesterday, he's like the CIA, the FBI, and the Mossad in one person. He finds everything on the internet. Yeah? His hobby, he's pensioned, he's 82 now, is looking up what people say about me. And that is very, he suffers the most from that. I would wish he wouldn't do that, but he finds everything. So when people say nice things, I sometimes, well, unnecessarily because he will have read it, but I sent that to him to know that there is some anti-poison too. But he suffered actually the most from that.
Quick question, did you get positive comments, people supporting you?
That is a very important question, because when, after showing this presentation, you might think that, all he gets are negative comments. That's absolutely not true. And there are many people who are extremely friendly that there is a counterweight for sure. So it's not all ugly. It is a minority view, but the bad thing is that the bad comments, they stick in your head a lot longer than the multiple of good and friendly comments you get. They're nice to get, but they shouldn't. They should stick equally well. But the nasty comments are the ones that stick in your head longer.
What do you consider to be the most important lesson from this whole pandemic?
On what level?
Regarding how it should be managed or what should we learn from this?
One of the most important lessons is that we're vulnerable. And I see now a tendency where people ask for evaluation of all that has happened, and that's good. Books are written every day now about the next pandemic, and I see a very dangerous trend that people think that if scientists advise the right things and politicians do the right things, we can manage a pandemic away. And that will not be the case. In one of the first interviews that I gave, I told them, okay, we'll do our utmost, but the only thing that we'll be able to do is to make an extremely bad situation a little bit less bad. That's all we can do with all these measures, but bad things will happen. And I think we should realize that we're vulnerable. Yes, we have floods, we have earthquakes, and we'll have epidemics too. And there is no way that we'll find the magic formula, except really China-like locking people up for months on end, to even have a chance to completely neutralize an epidemic. On the scientific front, I think that many more scientists should be vocal on the media and defend science. Some do, and some give up, because if you do, you will meet resistance. But resistance is not a problem. If you can predict resistance and resistance happens, that's fine. You have a feeling of being in control. But doing that, I think, is important. There is no science that is completely isolated from society. If society gives you the opportunity to study science, then you also have an obligation to to give the science back to the public in a way that they can understand. And this is not the task of one or two science communicators. That's too easy. This is the task of everybody to a certain degree.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Actually, also your last words left me thinking, like, you were talking about the science who were kind of sharing conspiracy theories, misunderstanding for the people. And it got me wondering, like, if we have this responsibility, like, what could be their motivation? If it was the popularity, or if you have found any answer for it?
For some people, popularity is the most important thing. For example, that person that I showed you there, that suddenly became a top vaccinologist, he had a career that at a certain point in time didn't go anywhere, and then he became a consultant and was from job to job here and there, and suddenly he gets the interest of the world with a contrarian view, and suddenly the broadcasting stations, because the anti-vaxxers, they have that, they come to his door, he gets a donation button on his website, and after that, his life changes, because that donation button works, and he suddenly sees money coming down his account, and in substantial amounts, because if they celebrate somebody, they really love him, and they will, even if they don't have a lot of money, they will give money to him. And that changes his whole life, and he thinks, okay, if I can milk this for a couple of years, the teacher, the dance teacher, his name is Willem Engel. The first year in 2020, he made 400,000 euros. The second year, 400,000 euros. Last year, 2,000, the half of that, because the crisis was going down. If you add that up, what he got was, well, €1 million. He's now not living in the Netherlands anymore. He went away with his girlfriend to Spain, and he's now setting up a dance school in Spain. That costs money. He has the money now to do that. So it's a powerful motivation. But it's especially the attention. Suddenly, there's somebody, whereas before their voice was not heard. That was powerful, I guess.
Thank you for your presentation too. I would like to ask you, how much time did it took you to go out after the safe house, like into public and? Immediately.
Well, otherwise you spend your life in hiding the whole time. No, the day after I take public transportation, I just have to be unpredictable. So there are two things that the police and the Secret Service advised me. First of all, I got the book. The book is the book with all the pictures of people that are considered dangerous from the right-wing parties. I know their faces. For me, it's important to know their faces. Who are they? And I get refreshed every half a year, the book. And then I have to be unpredictable. I cannot have a schedule. I thought that was not really a problem, because, well, every day is different. So I take different routes. When I go to my work, I take public transportation. I sometimes stay in Leuven, or I take a taxi, and I always take a different route. Good luck in catching me at a certain moment, at a certain time. When I give a lecture, when it's announced in the media, there is police there. When it's not announced, or when it's in Budapest, there is no police necessary. So there, they do that, and that's how I go about. But I'm outside, sure. That's because otherwise they win. That would be a very unpleasant thought.
Thank you for your presentation. I would like to ask you, did you have a moment when you thought, I don't want to do this anymore because of people and all these things?
Well, every morning. But that's just me, and after one coffee, then life looks a lot nicer. In reality, no, because what's the option? I'm trained as a virologist and an epidemiologist. So society has invested in me big time. And then when there would be an epidemic, you would sort of hide and shy away from your responsibility. It would be completely impossible. No.
Thank you so much for your presentation. Let me just look at the bright side of the presentation. You started at the age of 13, like just on the slide you showed. What motivation you had? Like, you must have a really huge urge and motivation to start at that age. And I really like the curve that you showed at the beginning. You have almost no experience, but really high confidence. How your confidence fluctuated throughout your journey. Okay.
I started at 13, first with a microscope, and then I read the biography. I was interested in microbiology. Once you have a microscope, and microscope used to be a children's toy, much more than it is now. In the early 1900s, microscopes were more prevalent in households than they're now. So I bought a little microscope, and then you look at the microscopic life in a pond, and suddenly a whole new universe opens. It's like you can either do astronomy, and then you go crazy about what's out there, but you can also do microscopy, and it's equally mind-blowing what you can see and do. Then I read a biography of the German bacteriologist Robert Koch, and it was really a sort of romanticized story of his life with drawings in the book. I still have the book, and one of the drawings showed Robert Koch at home, in his laboratory at home, and I thought, how neat is that? A laboratory at home. And then, as Peter told, I went to the pharmacists, and he was wrong. He said, I bought equipment there. I never paid a single penny. That was the time when the pharmacists shifted from doing chemistry themselves to selling boxes with pills. So they all had equipment there that was just lying there, glasswork, whatever you need in a laboratory, and they were very happy to give it to me. And then a couple of weeks later, I went back for their pharmaceutical products. In the beginning, I got small amounts. Later on, when they sort of felt, okay, I was doing reasonable things, I got more. And then you get all these things, and you can distill whatever. It was just neat. And I still vividly remember the feeling of waking up and immediately going to my lab to see what had grown on the potatoes that I had there in terms of bacterial colonies. And it was the pure excitement. That was the addictive thing. And after that, I have not been bored for a moment. I think boredom is the greatest sin. But when you find when you find something where boredom is not present anymore in your life, then you're a very, very lucky person, I think, and that has never changed. I think they're done, Peter.
So it's not, finally, it's really when I heard your presentation in Leuven, for me this was a spotlight in Leuven, to be honest.
Thank you.
I heard it, and I really felt that anybody here, even starting their very early career until they are at the other side, should hear it, because your commitments and your continuous work what the society needs. And I think many scientists, when they publish something, they believe that it's finished and open up a champagne and celebrate what they have done. But for me, and I think for many, many persons, and I think plenty of people think in Belgium, that the real implication of scientific knowledge, what you have done. So thank you very much for sharing your
Thanks
life.
for inviting me.
And it's a little gift from Semmelweis University, and let's come back again. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.